As those new condemnations come, so do more questions about claims from Fox News host Tucker Carlson's cherry-picked January 6 footage, which aims to downplay the violence at the Capitol. A moment being called a particularly outlandish false narrative centers on one bit of January 6 video circulating on social media. My next guest says claims about that video have zero basis in fact.
Al, use what you got.
Saw it there. Joining me now is former lead investigator for the House January 6th committee, Tim Heaphy, one of the very professional people that Congressman Thompson was talking about. Tim, good to see you again. Thanks for joining me. So in that video, people are chanting F Antifa, which January 6th apologists have used to claim that the people there were actually Antifa posing as Trump supporters in order to frame them. Did your investigation produce any evidence of false actors at the Capitol on January 6th?
No, absolutely not, Alex. And we looked, right? That was a narrative that we started with one of the things we flagged that we needed to look at. Were there instigators? Were there Antifa or other people in the crowd? Were there government, informants? A lot of this had already sort of been spun in the news before we started. And we looked at all that and found absolutely no evidence of any Antifa involvement whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, that conclusion is consistent with what the intelligence in advance of January 6th showed. There's a lot of information about what law enforcement knew, what they were monitoring, what was going on in social media, and increasingly clear before January 6th was that the sort of Antifa group of folks that had been at other events were sitting this one out. We're telling their people not to come. And that's exactly what we found happened on January 6th. Absolutely zero evidence that there were Antifa instigators in any way in the crowd.
Yeah. So let's take a listen to Capitol Police Officer Caroline Edwards, who testified before the January 6th committee describing what she went through that day.
What I saw was just a war scene. It was something like I had seen out of the movies. I couldn't believe my eyes. There were officers on the ground. They were bleeding. They were throwing up. I saw friends with blood all over their faces. I was slipping in people's blood. I was catching people as they fell. It was carnage. It was chaos.
Tim, when you hear that, what is your reaction to Tucker Carlson recasting the insurrection, downplaying that first person and other accounts of carnage and chaos, and contradicting what even Republicans say happened?
Yeah, it's a totally false narrative, Alex, to pick and choose some bits of video where there are people taking pictures inside the Capitol, where there are people walking through, not assaulting police officers.
Tim, let me pick up on that, because Carlson alleges that the Capitol Police did not do their jobs. He says that they allowed legitimate protesters into the building and that the police officers were the ones who didn't do enough to stop some of those from committing violence. Respond to that.
Yeah, again, ridiculous. I credit exactly what Chief Manger, the new Capitol Police chief, said. When officers on January 6th inside the building were overwhelmed numerically, they tried to de-escalate. They engaged with the rioters. They tried to get them to peacefully leave. They could not possibly put their hands on every single rioter, every trespasser, and arrest them. It just wasn't possible. That's frankly good police work. And the fact that men and women like Caroline Edwards continued after being assaulted, Caroline Edwards concussed at the Peace Circle, pepper sprayed, yet continued to defend the very people that are now asking for an investigation of the investigation. I mean, that is rich to me. The police officers did their job. They didn't facilitate entry or a riot. They tried their best to resist violence and then to de-escalate once people were inside because they were outnumbered.
Yeah. You are very well aware, Tim, that a Republican-controlled House subcommittee has launched an inquiry into the January 6th committee. They're going to be combing through all the records that were collected by the panel whose investigation you led under Chair Benny Thompson. They are expected to focus on security failures that day. And they've also launched a portal. They're trying to collect tips from the public. So the question is this committee doing legitimate work? I mean, what kind of conclusions could they make? What are the chances you think you might be called to testify?
Yeah, I have no idea. I agree with what Vice Chair Cheney said when this was announced. Bring it on, right? We released every single transcript of every interview we did, including with a lot of police officers, including with a lot of military leaders. Our report is really important and tells a comprehensive story, but there's all this other stuff that we felt like it was important to put before the American people so that there could be further discussion about law enforcement, about social media, about everything. So there's nothing hidden. There's no sort of something that was kept from the American people because we showed our work. My guess is when they get into those files and they see that, it'll reinforce our core findings. So I'm not here to talk about politics. I don't understand the politics of it. On the facts, I welcome any further review of our work.
Yeah. So listen, this next question may come out of the blue then if you don't understand politics, but I'm going to ask you to try to explain it to me. Marjorie Taylor Greene and James Comer, they're going to be going to the jails. They want to go to the jail in D.C. and visit with those that have been accused of insurrectional behavior. Why?
I don't know. Good question, right? Let's make clear the people that are charged with crimes at the Capitol go before a judge, and a judge then has to make a determination if that person is a flight risk or is a danger to the community. And only if there is a showing of one of those facts is that person held in jail. So the people who are in jail at the DC jail charged with Jan 6 offenses have been determined by a judge to either be continuing threat to the community and its safety or a flight risk. And those are the patriots that these members of Congress are going to go visit. Again, that's not politics. That's a neutral judge who has, on the merits, decided to hold those people in jail because they pose some kind of risk, and I can't explain the motion, the desire to go see them or to paint them as some kind of patriots or political prisoners.
Yeah, I'm curious if you think a future January 6th could be stopped based on what lawmakers have learned, what they've enacted over the past 2 years.
Yeah, look, the whole point of our committee was to start with facts. Let's figure out what happened and tell a credible story. And then let's learn from that. Let's issue some recommendations and have a continuing discussion about how to prevent a future attack on the Capitol. And that's everything from Electoral Count Act reform, which has already occurred, to talking more about a whole of government approach to gathering, assessing, disseminating information about domestic terrorism. Those are important ongoing discussions. My hope is that our work has facilitated that discussion. My hope is that that's a constructive discussion, that people with different perspectives can come together. And I hope, Alex, at the end of the day, that it makes a future similar event less likely.
Listen, given the nature of what we always talk about, I have to say I appreciate you coming on my show as much as any other, because it's so important to have you tell us what you learned under these circumstances.
Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Always. Thanks, Tim.